Hey, everybody, and welcome. I am so excited to be giving you this little mini training on how to identify your brand values and use them in your marketing. So, first, just a little bit about me. My name is Megan Taylor. I'm a copywriter and messaging expert for female online entrepreneurs. I mostly use storytelling led messaging to help my community connect with the people they really feel driven to serve so they can confidently share their talents with the world and make some serious dollars in the process. I am here to help you stand out, serve, and sell, and love doing it. So, this training in particular, I created it for business owners who want to truly connect with their audience. They're purpose driven, so they're here to do more than just make money. They want to provide genuine connection and value for their audience. You believe in the power of being authentic and intentional with your marketing. And you want to identify your brand values and learn how to weave them into your marketing and messaging. So this is you. You are in exactly the right place. So first, let's start with a little bit of a recap on brand values. There are so many fancy and complicated definitions out there, but essentially your brand values are the beliefs that your business stands for. It all comes down to that, right? These are the beliefs that you will refer back to anytime you have to make a really difficult decision in your business, maybe even without realizing it. So for example, your brand values might help you decide which type of clients you actually work with, or what parts of your business you decide to outsource. So as an example of one of your values is authenticity, you might choose to continue writing your own Instagram captions or interacting with your Facebook followers yourself rather than getting your VA to do it. These are like little but important decisions that we make as business owners every day, and having these brand values and these beliefs on what we stand for can make those decisions a lot easier. Most importantly, though, at least in my opinion, your brand values underline the story that you tell your audience about your brand. So your values are going to really differentiate you from anybody else who's offering similar products or services. And it's going to give your audience a way to connect with you on a different level. These beliefs and these values make it easier for someone to buy from you instead of someone else because they're going to relate to you based on your shared values. So the way I see it, there's a 5-step process to defining your brand values. We're going to break down each of these steps one by one. The first is to get clear on your personal values. The second is to think about the experience you actually want to deliver for your clients or your customers. The third is to go through a big list. The fourth is to start getting specific. And then the fifth is to choose 2 to 4 brand values that you feel perfectly sum up your brand. And I'll explain a little bit why it's important to keep it to 2 to 4 brand values. So first, get clear on your personal values. So if you're like me, you might be a solopreneur. And if you're a solopreneur, that means that your brand values and your personal values are going to have a lot of overlap. After all, you built this business around yourself, the type of life that you want, and the people you want to serve. So it makes sense that your brand values be tied to your personal beliefs. So here are just a couple of questions to get you started as you start thinking about what your personal values are. What do you value most in life? When making a difficult decision, what types of things do you normally consider? How do you weigh the pros and cons when making a decision? What do you think the meaning of life is? And I know that that's a really deep question, right? And that's a really hard one to answer. But if you can get clear on it, it can help you figure out what your personal values are. So I want you to go through these questions, make a list of these values, and then set them aside for now before continuing on. So now I want you to think about the experience you want to deliver with your business. And this is true whether you are a new business owner or you're somebody who's been in business for a while and you're trying to, uncover your brand values and reevaluate. Because even though these are your brand values, they're not really about you. Your brand values really need to be tied to the experience or the transformation that you deliver for your buyers, your clients, or your customers. So I want you to shift gears and think about those people for a second. Think about your clients, think about your customers, or if you're brand new to business, think about the clients or customers that you want to have. I want you to think about what kind of service or experience you want to provide for them. How do you want that experience to make them feel? What values do you think underline those experiences? So I'll give you an example. Let's say that you are a wedding photographer. Maybe it's really important to you that your bride and groom feel like the photography was a really natural part of their day, and they barely noticed you there with your big camera snapping away. So the brand value that underlines that important experience might be harmony, privacy, or balance. So again, I want you to answer all of these questions, write down all of your ideas, your nice long list of brand values, and then again, set them aside for now as you go through the rest of the steps. So step 3, and this is where most people start, but I don't want you to start here. Step 3 is to go through a list of brand values. So I want you to find a comprehensive list of brand values and print it out. And if you can't find one, or if you don't already have one, I created one for you. You can just go to megantaylormarketing.com/Ivory Mix. And you'll be able to download a list that I created of 200 brand values. So it's a 2-page list. And I want you to start going through them. So don't overthink this exercise. Don't tie yourself to a certain number. Don't say, okay, I'm going to highlight 20 or I'm going to highlight 30. I just want you to go through each one by one, and highlight or circle the values that you feel relate to you, the business you want to have, and the experience you want to deliver. If you have a team, you might want to do this exercise with them. So print all versions for everybody or send it to them if it's a remote team. Get everyone to circle the values that they feel best represent your brand. And then I want you to compare notes. Make special note of any commonalities, but also be sure to discuss any major differences that are coming up. This is going to help you see where you and your team are on the same page and where you might need to kind of tweak your messaging and your internal systems to better reflect your brand values. So get specific. I am going to be honest with you. Some brand values are better than others. And I don't mean, you should be striving for certain brand values. What I mean is that there are really generic brand values out there. There are so many companies out there who are already using brand values like excellence, integrity, quality, or passion, right? And so many companies are using these values that they're basically cliches at this point. I mean, if I was working with a company, I would really hope that they valued quality, right? You don't ever want to work with a company that doesn't value quality. So I want you to grab the 3 lists basically of brand values that you created in steps 1 to 3. And I want you to ask yourself, are these brand values as specific as they could be? Do they really speak to the heart of my brand, or could they be used by any graphic designer, web designer, copywriter? For example, if you've written down customer satisfaction as one of your brand values, I want you to think about what customer satisfaction actually means to you. Does it mean that you're always going to respond to customer emails within 24 hours? If that's the case, then maybe your brand value is actually speed or dependability. Does it mean that you'll do everything you possibly can to answer someone's question? In that case, your brand value might be persistence or understanding. So I want you to go through each of your lists and just scrap anything that sounds too generic. It's going to be tough, but it's going to make step 5 so much easier. And last, but certainly not least, this is the hardest part of your brand value exercise. So you probably have a long list of brand values in front of you right now, and that's totally okay, because your next step is to ruthlessly cut through that list and choose 2 to 4 values that most accurately describe your dream business, the dream experience that you have for your dream buyers. And I know this is hard work, but it's so important because having any more than 4 values is going to cause things to start being complicated and confusing, both for you and for your audience. So not only would it be harder to tell a compelling brand story because you're trying to share too many messages with your audience, it's also going to make it harder for you to make value-based, heart-centered decisions because the more values you have, the more criteria you have for evaluating those decisions. So trust me on this one, narrowing it down to 2 to 4 really specific, heart-centered values is going to be so helpful for you. So you're probably like, this is awesome, Megan. I've defined my core values. Now what do I do with them? And it's really important to make sure you're using these brand values in your marketing and in your messaging because your brand values are a fundamental part of your brand story. And the whole point of your brand story is to drive connection between your business and your audience. And if you're not sharing your brand values, you're not creating that connection. So remember, sharing your values and the more personal sides of your business doesn't have to be a scary thing. Remember that people want to buy from people, not businesses. And sharing your values is one of the best ways to show the heart and soul behind your brand. So here are my top tips on how you can start weaving your brand values into your marketing and messaging. So on social media, the next time that you feel really stuck on what the heck you're going to share in your next Instagram caption or Facebook post, I want you to try talking about the things that are important to you as a person or as a brand. Because like we already talked about, if you're a solopreneur especially, your personal values and your brand values are going to have a lot of overlap. As you try to decide what parts of your personal story and day-to-day life to share on social media, I want you to refer back to these brand values because they can help make that decision so much easier. So for example, if you already know that one of your brand values is knowledge, you know that you can talk about how to build learning into your daily routine. If you value freedom, you can talk about what freedom means to you and how you built a freedom-based business. So what about your website? I always recommend including your brand values on the About page of your website. All the big corporations do it, so why shouldn't you? You may be a small business, but the impact, reach, and connection you have with your audience is just as important as those big corporations. So I don't want you to simply pop up a bulleted list of your brand values. I want you to give each one a 1 to 2 line description of what each value means to you. So for example, one of my brand values is purpose, but purpose could mean something different to everyone. So on my About page, I explain what it means to me. This is exactly what I have written on my page. All actions done with intention, not because some top 10 blog post said you should. Strategies guided on best practices, yet rooted in your vision, values, and goals. Because that's what leading a purpose-driven business means to me. Among your team. So if you are at a point in your business where you've been able to scale and hire additional team members, I want to make sure that you're not skipping this really important step because you want to make sure everyone on your team knows of and is fully invested in your brand values. And that doesn't mean that they have to share those values, but it's amazing if they do. They should at the very least be on the same page as you about your vision and what values underpin that vision. And this is especially true if they play a really big role in communicating with your audience. Someone like a copywriter, a graphic designer, or whoever on your team replies to customer emails, right? Because they need to be having that communication with these values in mind. And it's going to help you build a greater sense of community from the inside out. As a bonus tip, you can work your brand values into your hiring process. So make sure you're keeping your brand values in mind whenever you're hiring someone new for your team, and then look for candidates who already align with your core beliefs. So that's it. I would love to know what brand values you came up with on this training. You can drop them in the comment section on this video, or you can get in touch with me on any of these channels. Do not forget to grab my list of brand values. If you don't have one already, you just go to megantaylormarketing.com/ivory mix, and it is there for you, ready to print off. I'm so excited for you. I hope that this was helpful for you, that you feel clearer on what your brand values are and how to actually use them in your marketing and your messaging. Happy connecting.